Okay, good evening. My name is Aaron Vandestein, and I'd like to call this meeting of the Grafton Public Library Board of Trustees Policy Subcommittee to order at 7:05 p.m. Since this meeting is being conducted via Zoom, I'd like to read the draft script for remotely conducted open meetings. So as a preliminary matter, this is Aaron Vandestein, the chair of the committee. Please permit me to confirm all members in person anticipated on the agenda are present and can hear me. Beth Schreiber.
Here.
And Debbie Jackson.
Here.
Great. So this open meeting of the Grafton Public Library Board of Trustees Policy Committee is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12th, 2020, to the current state of emergency in the Commonwealth due to the outbreak of the COVID-19 virus. In order to mitigate the transmission of the COVID-19 virus, we have been advised and directed by the Commonwealth to suspend public gatherings, and as such, the governor's order suspends the requirement of open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. Further, all members of public bodies are encouraged and allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. The order, which you can find posted on the town's website at www.grafton-ma.gov, allows public bodies to meet entirely remotely, so long as reasonable public access is afforded so the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will feature public comment. For this meeting, the Grafton Public Library Board of Trustees Policy Subcommittee is convening via Zoom video conference as posted on the town's website and identifying how the public may join. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and that some attendees are participating by video conference. Accordingly, please be aware that other folks may be able to see you, and that take care not to screen share your computer. Anything that you broadcast may be captured by the recording. All supporting materials that have been provided members of this body are available on the town's website unless otherwise noted. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda unless I note otherwise. We're now turning to the first item on the agenda. Before we do so, permit me to cover some ground rules for effective and clear conduct of our business and to ensure accurate meeting minutes. I will introduce each speaker on the agenda, and after they conclude their remarks, I will go down the line of members, inviting each by name to provide any comment, questions, or motions. Please hold until your name is called. Further, please remember to mute your phone or computer when you're not speaking. Please remember to speak clearly in a way that helps generate accurate minutes. For any response, please wait until I yield the floor to you and state your name before speaking. If members wish to engage in colloquy with other members, please do so through the chair. Take care, identify yourself. For items with public comment, after the members have spoken, I will afford public comment as follows. I will read public comments, questions received in advance of the meeting, followed by real-time board and or applicant responses. Public comments during the meeting will be conducted through the chat feature in Zoom, and I will read real-time comments, questions typed by computer participants in the chat feature, followed by real-time applicant or board responses. Finally, each vote in this meeting will be conducted by roll call vote.
I forgot to join the Zoom.
Well, you're on the Zoom.
You don't have to. Do I have to?
No, we don't have to.
Okay. I was like, oh, I'm not even.
Sorry. Yeah, I should probably mute. Actually, mine is probably muted already. Okay. So I call the meeting to order. So next item on the agenda is the approval of minutes for May 3rd, 2023. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
Sure.
Okay. And any second?
Second.
Great. Any discussion on the motion? Okay. Hearing none. All in favor? Debbie?
Aye.
Beth?
Aye.
And Aaron, aye. Next on the agenda is ongoing business, the art exhibit and display policy.
Wait for that up.
Thank you.
Okay. I did not incorporate any of the feedback that we got back from the union. I think that's our starting point of discussion.
Yeah, I agree. So I'll start the discussion in that I think the commentary was very helpful. The only thing is there were questions, right?
Yeah.
And so how do we respond to something that was kind of written into the policy as a response? So I think ideally it would be great if we could answer questions real time. But in this case, let's read through the questions and then we can discuss them and, formulate a response. So I'm going to pull up my copy. You have it?
I do.
Thank you. Okay. So the first question was section 1A. It states materials for display or exhibit are subject to prior approval of the library director or at times a juried panel. So the question was, what does a juried panel mean? Is that going to be staff or others? Yeah, so I like the language there. But a juried panel means what? People who are kind of appointed to be part of that.
Yeah. So I think the question is, how did we originally intend it? Did we intend it as we might need a jury panel in case an artist submits something and we're like, we don't know if this will fly. We need to pull together, convene a group to decide if it's appropriate for the library.
Yeah.
Or were we thinking ahead to somebody like the Small Stones Arts Festival, who has their own established jury panel of artist experts, would say we want to bring the things that we have decided are high quality and install them.
Yeah.
So I don't remember what the intent was. And I think the question is really about, is this a new duty for staff? Because it is not defined in any staff member's job description that they would be on a committee to determine the appropriateness or placement of art in the building.
Yeah. So I think the answer is no. So it's not a staff duty. I don't think that the language really needs to change. I think that's kind of a smart way to do it, because it's like, is it always going to be the library director's responsibility to review all art? And sometimes you might need some assistance, to determine if it's,
But if it is going to be staff at any point, then they have to bargain that in their contract negotiations. So that's the issue.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any further
If we say that
discussion?
it's administration, jury panel made up of administrators outside of the union contract, then we still need that clarifying language.
Yeah, I don't think in any way, shape, or form we would expect staff to be part of that jury panel.
Okay.
That wasn't our intent, I believe. Any further discussion? Okay. Moving on to section 4, facility, add size of spaces. So there's some language that looking at children's program room and teen tween makerspace, 114 and 120. So as an aside, we're concerned about those two rooms due to one is not a public space and they're both not a public space. So I think that's fair.
They are public spaces.
Okay.
The public goes into both of those rooms. So the makerspace is this room that we're in.
Yeah.
We would install rail above our heads there. The program room is where they have story time.
Yeah.
So I think a better question is, who gets to decide
Mhm.
what's going in those spaces, and how do we know it's going to be appropriate art for children?
Yeah.
Or is this solely reserved for like the teen librarian and children's librarian to say, hey, local teens, let's put up your art, and they decide, as
Mhm.
opposed to an artist bringing in art that they think is great for kids.
Mhm.
So that the policy, I think, has to be hashed out to reflect that, like who gets to decide in those spaces where other people might have more jurisdiction. I guess they're not. Then maybe the public question is, if there's no program going on, the program room is locked. If the teen room is not staffed, the teen room one is locked, or after school and when kids are not in school, like teens have preference and we don't necessarily want adults wandering through looking at displays. So that might be part of the concern too. I'm not, so that, they're kind of off limits in ways that say the gallery space is not.
Yeah, I mean, I think the same kind of rules that we've established for those spaces will apply. I don't think it really limits the art that kind of goes into those spaces, right? So whether it's, you wouldn't like approve adult themed stuff that would go in the children's room. It would generally be children appropriate stuff, and that would kind of go back to the jury panel of the library director's discretion. I would think. So I don't feel that we would need to change any of this at the moment. What was the other thing I had? Yeah, I mean, I think the kind of rules that are stated in other policies about, visiting the spaces. If somebody's browsing the collection, they're allowed to do that at any time, as long as they don't linger. And if they happen to want to take a quick look, it's like, yeah, I mean, don't linger, right? Don't loiter. That's the idea. So I think that's okay. I think we did address those questions. Anything else we might want to discuss regarding the facility? We wrote add size of spaces.
Yeah.
But I think it's going to be an addendum, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so that probably needs to be removed.
Are we allowing the department heads to solicit artwork for each department? I see where,
No,
No,
because it all goes to the administrative office. So it's more likely that an artist would come and say, I have art appropriate for kids.
Yeah.
Can I hang it throughout the whole library? And then we go to the children's room staff and say, is the space available? Or is it like, does it have paintings from our program that you did? Like, when is the space available to put up?
okay,
this
so
exhibit?
do they get priority for their,
I think they should.
like if the team room
priority.
does a program, then they get priority for displaying their stuff here first, and then it's just not available.
Yeah.
For whatever, whoever applies
Yeah.
at whatever time
It
frame.
needs to be coordinated.
yeah, I mean, is we would say that though, based on availability.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where,
That,
I think closer to. It says the library reserves the right to determine in its sole discretion what materials will be displayed, as well as scheduling, duration, and assignment of display spaces. So I think it's covered that they would. have-
scheduling, we
Yeah.
probably cover that.
well,
Yeah. Assignment.
is that gonna be
Sufficient.
a duty that's gonna have to be in? I'm saying,
Yeah.
just looking ahead to what is
Yeah.
gonna need to be negotiated. Or
Yeah,
is it-
I think that most department head managerial job descriptions includes some kind of scheduling. And it might not explicitly say museum passes, meeting rooms, program schedule, staff schedule, art display schedule. It's a scheduling issue.
But if it's I'm just coming
Yeah.
at
I
it like
wanna- I
a
wanna hear
union
all-
person saying like,
Yeah.
if it is at all spelled out and this isn't in there, then it's gonna have to be rewritten anyway, is my thing. It's gonna have to, we're gonna have to go back to it eventually, so.
Yeah.
I don't know if that needs to, if this is the step for doing that.
Procedures do not go on policy. So it would be a procedural thing of when, somebody comes in and says, we've read the policy, we have appropriate art, where can you put it? The policy says that the library decides, so.
I'm just concerned with the amount of work that we put into policies and then having to stop and do the union thing and then come back and redo them as much as we can get in language that they're going to be looking for. We're probably better off than having to wait months and months and months and think that we have a policy ready to go to the board, and then no, we don't, because now that's an additional thing that was not in the job descriptions is my biggest concern.
Well, I understand, but I'm trying to speak directly to, the question.
Yeah.
It's not a public space we allow. I mean, it is a public space. We allow public into these spaces, generally certain age ranges, right, which are defined by other policies.
Mhm.
So that's all. I mean, however you want to delegate to your managers is up to you. I mean, it says at the discretion of the library or a jury panel. Right. So again, we've kind of talked about that, saying that jury panel wouldn't necessarily be staff. But if you were to work with your department heads and say, is this space available? There's some children's artwork that may be appropriate.
Mhm.
What do you think? Right? I mean, I don't think you're even really delegating any duties at that point.
No.
Right.
Yeah, and they don't have to hang it or curate it.
Yeah.
Or be responsible for it, because the policy spells out like, you're not liable if someone gets into that room and takes art off the wall and walks away with it.
Yeah. So,
So,
yeah, that's how I. Okay. Any further discussion on that section? So the next section is section 8D. It reads, the administrative team will review requests on a rolling basis. Exhibitors looking to exhibit during the spring and summer months, March through August, should submit an application. All right. So I think this is there's some questions that speak to first line in line D. So this is, who will this be, meaning the administrative team?
I think it's the director and the administrative assistant who does have scheduling in general in her job description.
Yeah.
Or what specifically is that?
Will review requests on a rolling basis. So Beth and the administrative team will be reviewing the requests for art.
Yeah, I mean, this is the administrative team.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, so it says, who will this be? Union employee
Well,
or would be an additional that isn't in their description, but we need to bargain this.
I don't feel it's an additional duty.
Yeah.
The union could feel differently, you could feel differently, but I think it's a scheduling issue, and your job description specifically says that you do scheduling. And it doesn't specify, again, museum passes, meeting room, staff,
Mhm.
program.
Mhm.
All schedule, but just scheduling in general, and it's a scheduling function,
Okay.
so.
There's more here and I'll read it. It says, in the past, CR staff arranged for displays in glass display cabinet. Staff currently makes scheduling decisions for tours, meetings, rooms, museum passes, and library. This was defined in administrative assistant job description. Are these your notes?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, that was my.
Yeah, which is basically what you'd said.
I mean, I think it also frees up staff for, you know, if the because this covers the display case too. So if a kid says, I have an amazing collection of Star Wars Lego.
Yeah.
That I want to have displayed, the
Mhm.
children's room could take that request. They could also say, go talk to the administrator.
Yeah.
But there is past precedent for them putting in people's curated collections into a
Yeah.
display in the building. It wasn't their space, but it wasn't limited to things for children necessarily.
So,
I think there's past precedent.
okay, I agree. Remind me, does it talk about glass displays as part of an
Yeah.
option? So I know we were talking initially about the hanging rails.
Facility is under section 4.
Okay.
The first thing that says there's a, so this exhibit and display covers the art rail as exhibit and the cabinet as display.
Mhm.
I guess sculpture might be, and you know, sculpture would go into the display.
Yeah,
Collections would go in the display. We frequently utilize it for library initiatives like, you know,
Mhm.
Pride Month and
Mhm.
Disability Awareness Month,
mhm.
that sort of thing. Or major programs and events that we're having, we'll do a theme display to go with that.
Yeah, so it would be only in our best interest to define what the available public art, you know, display places are, if also the glass, you know, display cabinets are within scope. Again, based on availability, like library has a preference. Okay,
Yeah, so we have various display and exhibit areas in the first sentence, and then those spaces are defined in. I think it's covered.
yeah. Okay. Okay, any further discussion on administrative team? Okay. So any further discussion in general on this policy?
I guess, because I'm new to being managing and working with the union, is like, what's the next steps? I'm assuming I respond in writing and answer their questions.
And see if they have another
And then
response.
see if there's another response.
Yeah.
I think
No,
she needs to bring it back to the whole body.
Yeah, I wouldn't put her on the spot for that.
Yeah, Yeah.
Yeah, so they can review the minutes, right?
yes, and we can, yeah.
So what we talked about will be in the minutes, and so they can review the footage if
Yes,
they need to review it. So, okay. Was there another policy? Okay, so, so no further discussion on art and exhibit policy. The next, art exhibit and display policy. Next is the food, / kitchen policy. So I'm going to move to, section 4, line D. This line states, orientation to the food kitchen is required before the meeting commences. So the question was, provides rotation, or what is that word?
I can take a look. I can't read my writing.
No, you're writing the response.
Oh, I think this was written and then scanned and it
Oh.
got cut off. So I'm guessing it's provides orientation.
Orientation, sure, that's
The first part of
that
that
makes
was
sense.
missing. Yeah, but I couldn't parse the rest.
Yeah, I think I have the.
Again, I think it goes back to. Is this a new duty that we're adding to union staff? Because we've never had a public kitchen before.
Yeah,
So we could specify the administrative team. Again, I don't know how you feel about that. The orientation to the kitchen is, this is the kitchen. There is the gas stove. There is the dishwasher. It has a sanitizing cycle. This
Yeah.
is the fridge.
Yeah.
Here are the manuals.
yeah,
That's it. And there's the allergen aware sign and the anti-choking, the hand washing instruction. Like, that's it.
yeah, totally cut off from the scan copy. too.
Yeah. That's weird, but like I said, my guess is it's just who's providing the orientation? Is this a new task for staff to take on?
Yeah, I mean, it could be, right? You know,
I'm
just
fine with it being, make an appointment with the administrative team.
yeah, so we can certainly change the language. Because because your comment was this could be administrative team. Would the administrative team be available to take these sort of the orientation, I guess, would have to work with your schedule,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
So they can't assume that, like, if they have a meeting, who knows, on a day that neither of you are scheduled.
Yeah.
That you'd be expected to give them orientation, so you'd probably have to schedule it ahead of time.
Yeah.
That's all.
It's primarily going to be related to facility rental so far in my experience in the last year. And they're usually booking out at least 3 weeks in advance. So someone's generally not coming in and saying, I need to have a Girl Scout meeting tonight and we need access to the kitchen because we're gonna reheat popovers in the stove. Like, that's generally not, and if they did, like, we can't accommodate that request. The timeline just does not work with what's outlined
Mhm.
in the policy, which is we recommend at least 3 months, 3 weeks advance notice and up to a year's advance notice to plan out something that's on that scale.
Is orientation to the space for room reservations in other people's job descriptions already?
It's not, because I don't think we had the space set up when we were working on the job descriptions. I will also note, though, that prior to the union coming in,
Mhm.
staff were trained in the AV equipment in the community space. And it's now staff, no, who are not me, who orientate people who have booked meetings to how to plug in their computer, how to set up the microphone, how to adjust the volume, how to combine the rooms, how to drop down the projection screens. And I would say that the kitchen orientation is akin
Mhm.
to the frontline staff
Mhm,
who are
that's
doing
what I
that. And it's mostly the borrower services department who's taking that on.
Yeah,
So it's
so
tricky.
so we could, I mean, we could
So-
leave this to the union if they feel that orientation to the kitchen prior to someone using it, would be something that they feel would be additional duties, but
Yeah. I also feel like I'm the one on staff who's been consistent with, I have my food manager certification, I have my allergen aware, like I've gotten sort of all the food safe training. Some other staff have taken responsibility and done that as well.
right. You would be the expert.
And
for
if we
sure.
had done a training in
Yeah.
how to use the stove or how to run the dishwasher, again, like in August 2021, when we reopened, the way that we did with the AV, then I'd feel more comfortable saying, really, for my staff, you can handle this.
Mhm.
I think it makes sense to add a line the administrative team. To this line, orientation to the kitchen is required before the meeting commences and will be scheduled with the administrative team.
Yeah.
Or provided by the administrative team.
Yeah. Okay.
Provided by.
I'm
right?
fine with
It's,
that.
it's infrequent.
Yeah, I mean, I'll leave it up to your best judgment. But I'm fine with that.
I'm just saying from what I know of. The job descriptions in the union and how they're reviewing things, that if you are saying like, now this is something they will do, even if it falls under something else. It's going to be viewed at probably going to be viewed as an additional duty, unless it's specifically spelled out. Just because there are so many things that we didn't anticipate.
Yeah.
I wasn't here when this happened, but the building and everything was set up, that it's becoming a tricky situation.
Okay.
But again, we'll make the edit and
We
then
need
go back to them.
capes.
We
Administrative.
need what?
We need capes or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Administrative too.
Okay. So, seeing no other comments, do we have anything that we'd like to bring up outside of the comments? We've been working on this one for a while, so I don't see that we have the need to rehash anything. Unless something was glaring.
I will say that I had started to find out staff, public meeting and private facility rental. And requirements, which would have told me I could put in requirements outside of what they asked for, but they have. In the past couple of months. Saying if it's a private meeting, you don't have to do any of that, it's fine. So we could actually change that language, private facility rental, contact Board of Health. For guidance.
So you could pare that down
Yeah,
quite a bit.
Yep.
Yeah. I
It
think that would
seems-
be appreciated.
it seems like if someone's getting catering from a local business, they're already aware, they know when they were inspected, they know that they're certified, as opposed to getting it from the next town over, and now it's a restaurant they don't know, so now they want to have those documents. So.
Yeah.
And I'll check again with Nancy Connor at the Board of Health. She may say, actually, it's Worcester Board of Health, not us, who does that.
Okay.
And what I do is I actually just encourage the meeting convener or facility renter to talk to them and see what they say.
Right.
I do think it's important. Like I said, when they come, I always point out the allergen aware checklist and where the AED machine is and where the first aid kit is, but we've at least got some mechanisms in place
Mhm.
in case things go wrong.
Okay. So you'll pare that down.
Yeah, it just, yeah.
Great. Thank you. Okay. So moving on. Here's my agenda. You might need to, because I know I got it. Here we go. Material selection policy.
Yeah.
So. Beth, you felt that this probably needs a bit more components based on your research.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we feel that we're lacking at this point.
Yes.
So it needs some more work. So you'd like to
I'd
table
like
this
to
one?
table it.
Okay. So I will hear a motion to table the material selection policy.
I will make a motion to table the material selection policy.
I'll second.
Okay. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, Aaron, I, Beth,
Hi.
and Debbie.
I
I declare the motion carried. Okay, so next is the Freedom Library. You have something to review? Would you mind sharing, please?
So I tried to take out anything referencing pandemic. You and I had talked a little bit, and I also said we need sort of an overarching, we always want to, why are we putting this policy in place?
Yeah,
So I drafted something and sent it out, and I
Awesome.
didn't have any feedback that anyone hated it or that it didn't work for them.
yeah,
So
yeah.
it could be pared down. It's a little bit long.
I like that you used a lot of the research we used in the
Yeah.
letter when we were doing this work.
It
So
was a good letter. Thank you for all your work on it.
yeah, well, thanks for supporting me on it
Yeah.
because a lot of that data came from you guys collecting it. So it was good.
Yeah.
I'd like a little bit more time to review this one. And just I'm lacking in my duties to review this, and I really like this one. So
I also believe that if, like, it could go to the union and we could get their feedback. Because
Yeah.
that it hasn't gone to the union yet.
mhm.
This is actually removing something from their job descriptions. They don't collect, they had in the past had collecting fines
Yeah,
as part of their job descriptions for our services people.
We tried that for kitchen orientation.
Probably not.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
Yeah,
So often.
so should we plan to send every policy, every new policy, and every existing change policy, anything that's not already approved by the board? Okay, so
From
that,
here on out, yeah.
yeah, to the
Yeah.
union. Okay.
Yeah.
So we'll plan to send this to the union for some commentary. Do we want to do that after?
After you look at it,
Yeah,
sure.
yeah, I mean, I should be able, it's a short read, so I should be able to get back pretty soon.
I do have feedback from John.
Oh,
Yeah.
great.
He said, he said it looks good. He just wanted to throw out this quote from Twitter. Punishable, I find, means legal for rich people.
Mhm.
That's what he was his input in there.
Oh, is that someone?
No, I don't know. I think you should just wanted to add that it's a barrier for service for some people.
Yeah, so.
that.
it is-
Mhm.
We
Okay.
don't want that.
Mhm.
Interesting.
Yeah, okay, great. Any further discussion on fine-free library policy? Okay, thank you, Beth, for putting that together. On to new business, the pandemic policy.
This one's double spaced, the rest are double spaced.
Hmm.
We're not consistent.
I don't love double space. It makes me,
Don't like it.
yeah, it makes you feel like you're looking for professor feedback or something on it. And it's double spaced.
Just messed up all the formatting.
Mhm.
I guess I should be trying.
Yep.
Um,
Yeah.
It's frustrating.
I think you just click review, right?
I can't because then the menu pops up. Okay,
Yeah, oh, it's, you already have it on.
yeah,
It's on.
no.
The Zoom-
Anyway,
can you pull the
this can
Zoom
be
thing
fun.
down?
Can I do that?
The bar?
Oh,
There we go. Look at me.
Layout.
Did not know you could do that.
Spacing.
No, I don't.
This is probably painful for people watching at home, I'm sorry. There.
Well, you'll get
Always
to it.
fix it after it's,
Mhm.
all right.
So can you walk us through some of the changes here?
I haven't made any changes. I sent it out for feedback and didn't get it. Feedback. So.
Yeah.
Sorry, but,
So let's start with John's feedback.
okay.
I don't have any of them. Displays fine free program, medical consent and material selection. There's nothing on
Okay.
pandemic that I'm seeing, but I'll double check. I didn't miss it.
Okay,
Yeah.
so the only issue I might have is anything that's procedural. right?
Mhm.
We should probably pull out because it's kind of our mantra, right?
Right.
I mean, staffing, there's a whole bunch of staff stuff right there. A
Mhm.
lot of that can probably come out. Because that's more procedural, right? Procedures manual will be reviewed and updated annually.
Mm.
I mean, it's really a pandemic policy for who? Right? It's not really for your staff.
Right.
It should be written as a policy for for the library.
Mhm.
So perhaps we can highlight that to be put into procedure. Anything that has to do with, yeah. Yeah. It's fine, looks good. Okay. Yep.
This is all procedural too.
Yep. You missed a lot of the fun when they had to quarantine stuff for 7 days.
Books open, drying all over the building.
When we used, I was living in Maryland, we did curbside pickup and I was like, you cannot have them yet. And I had alcohol wipes and I wipe them off and then they
Oh,
can
for the
be,
library, yeah.
yeah.
Good.
We were utilizing the library where we were.
I think this is policy and not procedural. The program cancellations piece,
In what way?
because it's not internal decision. Really, it's to say if other bodies are doing these things, then this is how we'll respond. Where it's scheduled PPE training for staff, like that's me doing something for the staff.
Yeah, I mean, I like the board of library trustees could suspend library programs at any point for any duration time deems appropriate.
And we have this kind of language in our inclement weather policy too, these if then statements about, if the state determines that we should be closed, we close. The town determines we should be closed, we close, and it kind of goes down this hierarchy of
Mhm.
authority. For who gets to make the decision.
Well,
It's so it's not the staff procedurally deciding, oh no, we can't do any programming. Does that make
yeah,
sense?
well, I think it's important to point out program cancellations. That's a big part of what you want to address during a pandemic or epidemic. I'm okay to change the language, but I think it should be called out some way in the policy. How do we do it in the inclement weather policy? Is it the same?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Except, that this policy doesn't have the outline formatting that other policies do, but it should just be adding.
Yeah, I mean, you could say the board of library trustees can suspend library programs at any point in time for any duration at time it deems appropriate, based on guidelines from the town and or the state, the governor. So you kind of call it all out.
Instead of listing all of these.
Yeah, based on recommendations from other bodies, government bodies.
I'm wondering if it's in here so that if town of Grafton or the state says, stop doing programming, and the board says, no, keep doing it,
Yeah,
that would be a concern.
yeah. Hmm. Yeah, so that way you can avoid all the if then statements. Okay. We can always scrutinize it later.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mhm.
I think- So also like we don't quarantine any.
Yeah.
So that could just be eliminated.
Yeah.
It could be that with a different
Yeah,
type of virus that is more touch and not airborne. we would
I mean,
want
you
to-
could say based on, you don't have to say items will be quarantined, but it can be, you can say things like. I'll let you say that.
Based on
Debbie.
recommendations from. What are they?
Municipality or
No, maybe,
But it was.
Fauci, what's his,
the,
his organization?
not the Board of Health, but also, the WHO, the World Health
Yeah,
Organization.
World Health Organization and like the recommendations for,
For materials handling.
Yeah.
You know.
But it was the librarians who did the research and set the procedures.
Mhm.
The World Health Organization was not thinking about library materials.
Well, yeah, you don't have to well help things, but you also say basic recommendations, regarding,
procedures, like procedures for quarantining.
transfer of,
Based on recommendations from World Health Organization, all
And I-
referred items may be quarantined as needed.
The NIH National, is it the National Institute of Health, wasn't it? How quickly we forget. Getting those updates every day back in the
Or
day.
CDC too.
Yeah,
So we could just say governmental organization.
sure.
How about that?
yeah. I finally got around to watching The Last of Us. It's so real.
I, you know.
I love post-apocalyptic stuff, by the way. It's a science fiction stuff based in reality. Yeah, and a lot of it, most of the show is based in Boston.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I think I
That's
heard
the
that.
beginning of the show, so I'm like, oh yeah, I remember working there during the pandemic. Yeah.
So I'm changing the previous one just to like government organization.
Yeah, that's fine.
Matches.
Okay. So we can't, if we're gonna say this is a pandemic policy. You don't want to just say visitors must wear a mask to enter the building. You may say, based on guidelines, set by a current pandemic or, epidemic.
Mhm.
Recommendations will be, it may not be masks, maybe something else, right? So, I don't want to say recommendations, but guidelines. Now you're right, say guidelines.
Mhm.
You know where I'm going with it?
Yeah. You say maybe has to wear a mask or take other
Or
measures.
you use a PPE.
Okay.
You know. Mhm. That's a good one.
If the visitors not compliant, the libraries are certain to call. Visitors who cannot comply with PPE
Mhm.
recommendations.
Yeah. Well, requirements, right? So we're gonna say recommendations. We should call out PPE, the initials.
First.
Yeah, first. I learned the other day that I've been calling it initials, acronyms when they're not. An acronym is initials that you can pronounce.
That's
Like
Because
laser,
who would like scuba here?
and scuba and laser. Almost. Otherwise, it's just initialism.
No kidding.
Mhm,
Another ism.
mhm. Yeah. Yes,
So again, instead of making a procedure for staff, can
mhm.
we say that obviously ill patrons may be offered alternatives, including refusable service, placement of barriers, allowing patrons to scan their own stuff?
Mhm.
We could even like rearrange this hierarchy. Less extreme than that.
Yeah.
Trends.
Yeah,
Would you want to say for protection of staff or?
no, you don't need
Just-
to.
okay.
I think it's pretty clear. You know, if you're in a situation where you're complying with the PPE, but the staff feels they're at risk because, you know, for whatever reason, even though they may be safe, but it's clear this person is ill for some reason. Yeah, I mean, they need to protect themselves first and foremost.
The first bullet mentions patrons at the end, because you had it, you had originally had it for staff. It's the first one on this. Should I say between themselves and staff? The end of the first bullet.
It's one of their. Discussion. Oh,
Since we swapped.
Okay, you flipped it. Yeah. Okay. Collection development and library resources. I mean, there's some of this procedural. I'm just asking. Because if you would say, you know, hey, we need to increase newspaper subscriptions and digital music and video and databases because, you know.
We put allocations into our budget and it gets voted on at town meeting,
Mhm.
but there is still some discretion for reallocating during the fiscal year.
Mhm.
Which makes me think it is procedural, like we wouldn't normally have to go back and say, what if we want to buy more ebooks or add a database?
Mhm.
Is it
Yeah.
okay? We don't
We don't
like
need
generally need permission
Yeah.
after the
we don't
fact
need
to
to
make
call
those
it out in the
changes.
policy. Yeah, I'd be happy to remove the whole section. It's nice to know, but we don't need to know how you deal with a pandemic and how you order things.
Mhm.
It's hard to call out what someone will do in this policy, right?
Right,
So your staff will do these things.
Yeah.
I hate to be so finite and definitive.
mhm. The other, so for the cleaning and disinfecting piece, like technically I don't have custodial to direct.
Right. So how could you even tell them to do that? Hey, you need to disinfect
Yeah.
that.
I think the policy might be that we would make that the library will follow all government required will be compliant with whatever the government recommendations or requirements are.
Yeah, I mean, it's really set by the town, right? If the
Yeah.
town says this is a public building and you just only sanitize the door handles or railings at 8 touch points. And, you know, we need to follow what the town guidelines are. I don't know that we should really even get in the business of trying to dictate how the library should be cleaned in that case of an epidemic.
Well, except when we were in the midst of the pandemic in 2020, like. We did direct staff to clean 3 times a day and document it because I had to sign paperwork that said we would do that. So
Yeah, well, staff.
this is what.
Yeah, staff will clean at midday, right? So, you know, that might be more procedural stuff too.
And really, it'll be like per,
Yeah,
for
yeah.
the town of Grafton's COVID policy.
Yeah.
You don't want to delete it because I am going to go back. draft like what we did.
Okay.
The administrative team. will be assigned.
Yeah. Again, we don't need to put this in the library policy.
So what are the left?
I think it's.
There might be another pandemic and we're gonna follow the guidelines. That's what the policy says.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's good to go back and pull this out. And is it
Yeah.
written in procedure anywhere?
It's not in procedure. It's written up in the,
COVID.
yeah, we were required to have a phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, phase 4
Yeah.
plan. So that's really where those things shook out.
Mhm.
I would say when you're going back to that document, pull those out and put in a separate one and just to save what you,
Yeah,
I mean, I know it's somewhere else, but.
Yeah, I think we need to read this like. If we hadn't had an epidemic or pandemic policy and, or we didn't have a state of emergency and say, well. You know, what might the library do? We might close based on government recommendations. And I think that's spelled out there. What else?
What are they first?
So
The
we
first
just
set of-
Cancel, yeah,
Handle materials.
yeah.
You're basically closing, handling materials and.
Oh, and
sanitizing.
canceling programs,
Yes, yeah.
trying to make
Sanitizing,
accommodations,
All according to.
yeah. Protecting staff, you know. Yeah, I mean, it's gonna be a much shorter policy, but I think that's fine.
Yeah. I think so too.
Yeah. Yeah, so when we say please do these things,
Yeah, so this is on a,
yeah,
it's on a flyer that
It
we
is,
have
yeah.
hanging most of the time around the
Yeah.
building. Like pandemic or not, it's always true that if you're sick, you should stay home. And if
mhm,
you have anything that's highly contagious, like
Mm-hmm.
conjunctivitis or the flu,
yeah,
stay home.
um,
But it's, maybe this doesn't belong in a policy. Telling people to wash their hands.
no, a policy just say, what is the library going to do?
Yeah, just,
Yeah,
yeah,
I don't know
the
what to
basic,
say. Yeah.
that's still good information to keep in the post.
Yeah.
Because some people don't think about it. I'm sick, I'm off work and I feel awful, but not so awful. I'm not gonna run to Dunkin' and get a coffee and then drop my books off in the book drop on the way there, you know, while I'm sneezing all over them. I think still a good thing to keep in post, but probably not for the.
Mhm. Voluntary, adhere to the following.
You just involuntarily stay home
Mhm.
to reduce exposure.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, to protect patrons and staff, right? And visit us at a later date. I mean, it's one of those things where it's not such an emergency. To return your materials anymore.
They're not
You know,
finding them.
Like, you don't, it's not an emergency. So we don't want your dirty materials.
Mhm.
Come back when you're healthy. Yeah, I like it.
Mm.
Okay. We should probably stop sharing. We go through all the
As I say, I'm
other
just- No, okay.
stuff.
I want to save it as a new draft, that's all, because I know a question that's come up in the past is what was changed, I use track changes.
Yeah.
Now I'm gonna save the draft.
This is already one
Yes.
that's posted on the website, so.
That's true.
Yeah.
I don't want to have to go watch the meeting again to see.
Good practice. Okay. We are at 8:00. Do we want to continue with the display policy and the program policy? Under new business. We can decide to table them because they're new business.
Mhm.
So I can certainly wait till the next meeting to review these. Unless we want to jump around and take a look at one or both.
I'm happy to, I'm here till 9, so
Yeah, okay. I'm happy to take another look.
I would like to be done at 8:30, so I can do rounds, let's say that, but I think we could take a look at one of them.
So
Give it-
on to the next order of business, we'll have the display policy and the program policy.
John's comment, he said overall it looks good, but it feels like it should be a subsection under the material selection policy.
Okay.
So I don't,
I respectfully disagree.
okay,
They have to be separate documents. The displays policy is going to be a lot shorter.
mhm.
We're required to have a specific material selection policy. And the research that I started doing was it has to have these components and other libraries do not lump it together.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then there's just a correction on the,
Well, yeah.
says Westford instead of Grafton. And then he asked, do we need to call it the staff recommends section specifically? I feel like that could be removed. That was just,
Yeah, we could just say display titles are curated. We don't currently have a staff recommends labeled display.
no, we don't.
Yeah.
That the staff choose to display items based on.
What was the date of that email?
He just sent it to me.
Oh, okay. That's why we don't look at it like I have something.
I meant to be,
You guys are like, wait a second.
I meant to be attachments because my email is very disorganized.
Friday, did I do it Friday?
The original,
Yes, it
I
was.
have the original change starting 5 days ago on the second with me saying with the agenda.
Yeah, that's Friday.
Yeah, that was. Friday,
I
June
was like,
2nd.
I looked at what was on the agenda and here are the drafts. Hoping everyone would read them over the weekend. And then I didn't look at them because I was very busy.
Yeah.
The material selections.
Did I leave it or not?
I started going through the program policy. It's a lot.
Please begin.
John sent me his feedback. He's wanting to know if he should send that to you, either one of you next time, or does.
I think to avoid discussion and not violate open meeting law.
Just send it to one of us.
Yeah.
Me, that's fine. Oh, solid point. Yeah, that is.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or he could have put my feedback, not to be discussed via email, to be presented at the meeting.
Okay,
I think that also sort of covers it anyway. But,
okay.
I know in the past when we've solicited feedback, it's like send all the comments to the scribe
Mhm.
and then they will send it out in a batch
Okay. well, there
or
you
share
go.
at the meeting. So,
That's what he did.
yeah, I think he
I
did.
don't have the.
No, I'm sorry. Do we leave it with the chain?
No,
Just can't
probably
find it.
not. I just,
What the display
It's
policy?
very short and sweet. Let me see if I can I share it. So I took out a space and I changed Westford to Grafton. And
mhm,
so this was a policy that they were using that I thought was short and sweet and to the point.
mhm.
I took out staff recommends and changed it just to display titles. Display titles are good. It does not constitute endorsement. I think that's all we're looking for. And then we wouldn't have a challenge to a display in the way that we would for a material, right, a book or a movie or something. So we just default to the, if anyone's dissatisfied, someone comes in and says, I don't like what you have on display, or you shouldn't have that where kids are, why don't you have this on display instead?
Mhm.
Here's your recourse. Follow the appeals process.
Okay,
You need to add the appeals process too.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh,
It looks, it fits
Oh,
right in
gotcha.
so
I-
nicely, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Because this is
I
brand new, so I just included.
literally just read that. I still asked.
It's okay.
Didn't click.
Wait. Um, do we feel like this is ready to go to either legal or the union, or who do we do first? Oh, maybe the union.
Union.
Yeah.
yeah, probably go to union first.
Legal's so much harder to get.
Yeah, so union, yeah, I'd like to send this to union first. So I will hear a motion to send this to the union for review.
I will move that we send the draft, this library displays policy to the union for their review and feedback.
My second motion.
Okay, motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, all in favor, Aaron, I, Beth,
Aye.
and Debbie,
Aye.
great.
Program policies,
Yeah,
but
yeah, if you'd like to go through, it, we can certainly
Alright.
take a look.
let's take a look.
It is a long time till we meet again. I agree. We're here.
So I think I based this one on another library's policy too, for components that we should include. We do have a draft. Staff policy that's more procedural and mostly related to children's programming, and we felt like we needed something more overarching. Because we run into issues with people trying to get children of an inappropriate age
Mhm.
into various programs. Or people sign up and don't show up and then they're taking up spaces, or people come late and expect to be let into the program. And we feel like because those have created conflict, we now need a policy to rely on to talk about how we choose the programs we offer. The guidelines for selecting presenters, the criteria for choosing those programs, where the money comes from,
Interesting.
and then we have an intellectual freedom statement that connects to our material selection policy.
Mhm.
Who gets to go to programs and how do we decide about the age ranges and whether the repercussions. Registration is the thing that has repercussions, what happens when people get waitlisted, they don't show up. It's long.
Mhm.
Installations, event management. So we need to look at this for an eye for what's procedural. Is there anything procedural that can be taken out? And I think because it was a policy from another library originally that I modified,
Mhm.
this is probably, it's long, but it should be mostly.
Okay,
And they are things that I think we need board support behind. For when we say, I know your 3-year-old is precocious and brilliant, but they may not go to the program for 5 to 7-year-olds.
Mhm.
It's not fair to the 5 to 7-year-olds.
right, what that could be waiting for space for the wait list. Yeah.
No, they can't come in at all. Like, they just can't. It's for 5 to 7-year-olds, 3-year-olds do not attend.
Okay.
We had an issue where we offered an art program. One section for teens, like 12 to 18, or 12 to 17, and then one section for adults, and it was like a similar program, 18 and up. And the adult program felt like that, all 15 slots. And then the teen program got 3 people registered, and staff came to me and said, can we open it up to the waitlisted adults and just do an adult and teen program? And I said, no, because the people who signed up for the teen program were expecting that their teen would be with peers, not with other adults who they don't know, who aren't vetted.
Yeah.
That's not appropriate.
Right,
So that's the kind of things that we sort of need to codify.
Yeah.
I think the whole space for various age groups.
yeah, this would be a great one to, so what's the timeline for something like this? Are we trying to get it ready for summer programming? Because
I don't think that's possible. Summer programming starts in July.
I mean, certainly, Jackie and Teddy and Augie are gonna be signing up for everything to get through the summer.
Yeah.
Because Jackie's not working during the summer,
Mhm.
and anything with the word Lego on it, look out.
Yeah, well, we made decisions like with Lego in the past where it's been like, there's 6 different projects, but you can only come to one because
Yeah.
we want to be fair and equitable, right? So you picked your top 3 and then they had this complicated way to manage it so that most people got their top choice.
Okay,
And that might be more procedural, but there might be a statement in here that says we try and be equitable with the access to programming. You know, we don't want the same people. Part of the reason registration starts only 3 weeks in advance is so that somebody doesn't sign up June 1st for every single program for their age group, and then block out people who didn't have a chance to go take a look. And then they forget and they cancel because they signed up in June for an August 15th program. So really the policy is about eliminating some of those issues.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
It probably gets very long. I feel like going through it at the moment is provided an overview.
No,
There may be
having
that
the
it's
overview.
really long.
Yeah. Good. The only thing that I would say to take a look at, if this is already in a different policies, other policies we already have, because this is something that's rather new for us. Well, how do we do without it before? Well, we probably had other policies that said things like, you know, what kind of, how to watch your kid in the library. You know, I saw something about, you know, a 3-year-old is going to be arm's length or whatever that may be. So I'm just trying to think like that's the things to watch out for as we read through this, and you know, to find things that may be called out in other policies. So
Look at our meeting space policies referenced.
Yeah.
Some hyperlink.
And I'm sure it stands
Yeah.
stands fine in isolation, which is great. I think we should endeavor as a committee to not duplicate things.
Okay. Yeah, so we could just say the unattended child policy applies to program attendees, period.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
We have sometimes made exceptions, so we've got this tricky gray area where we say kids under 13 can't be alone in the library. But technically teen services is grade 6 to 12. So then you sometimes have 11 and 12-year-olds who are in grade 6 who want to come to a teen program with peers. This was like a D&D thing that used to happen on Friday nights, where there's sort of an understanding of, well, for this specific program, we'll make an exception as long as they can get in touch with a parent. And I don't know that that's covered, maybe it needs to be. If we were to do that in the future, we actually just decided that we're going to do a pizza party at the end of the year, but we're going to put grade 7 to 12 because it's going to start like right when the 6th graders are getting out of school, and they're only 12 anyway. So we're limiting the ages. See how it goes.
And the schools had mentioned too, when I spoke to them about the 6th grade visiting, is that something that's tricky for them, which we understand, is also the 6th grade is when they're allowed to walk. Like unattended, the 6th graders can, so.
Yeah, says who though? The school, the
I think
parents, the police,
school- I think it's a school policy.
Yeah.
That the 6th graders can walk and go. I don't know, mine's in 5th, I guess I'll find out. I don't know,
That's
sixth
right,
grader.
yeah.
Yes,
Is
I
that
do
it?
have 6th grader. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, that was just something too, that. By age or by grade,
I see a number of kids walking to North Street School by themselves.
yeah. It's tricky too, because. Like we talked about the one student that was here today, you were like, he looks small, and I'm like, I honestly think he's just small. Like they don't have a driver's license, like you can't, they don't walk around the birth certificates, you can't really, and they'll tell us, oh, I'm in 8th grade. I have no recourse for that. You just don't.
Yeah.
I mean, not
Unless
not without a bunch of other stuff, like there's no.
Where's your library card?
Well, sometimes they have a library card. And we ask for date of birth when they set up the library card. So if they do it at 12 or 13, they could lie, but generally they got it, when they were 5 or 6 with their
I
parents.
need to renew Augie's library card. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I'd like some time to look at this. Any feedback from John?
On, I don't think. Oh, yes. I do. It says 5, is there an O in section?
Yes, the public, there it is. Program sponsored by charitable organizations whose purpose and mission is to support the Grafton Public Library may include a sale of merchandise as a means to fundraise for the benefit of the library. Specifically, like the capital campaign of the Friends.
Okay, just saying, it says it mentions the library collection policy. Is that supposed to be material selection or is it a separate policy? Is what
It's material selection.
good catch. Section 6. You're done with that. He said section 6 seems particularly redundant with material selection policy and also includes other statements like parents and guardians are responsible for overseeing their minor children's use of library collections and services. Maybe we can reference the other policy here.
No, we should just keep it to programs.
Okay. Section 6.
Oh, like the whole thing should come out, maybe.
I was wondering if intellectual freedom, do we need that in the program policy? I mean, I know that what we're
Yeah.
doing is trying to
Yeah,
have something in place for people who are fighting, like, let's say.
a drag queen doing a teen makeup program at the library, which
I was
happened in
thinking-
Danvers.
I wasn't even gonna say that one. I was gonna say that Eric the plant guy.
Oh, yeah, well, it's
Yeah.
closer to home.
Any programming that they don't agree with, I guess, so I understand that. He also has section 6. G and H, he said are contradictory. It says something to the effect of kids are not allowed at adult programs, but we will provide them with alternative if they do come. Yeah, I can, G and H. I marked that on mine too when I was reading through it. Wait. Maybe it's not section 6.
Yeah, okay, I just.
Section 7. Yeah, section 7.
Yeah, I think it would be. Not it would be. I think they wouldn't be allowed in the program. But if they're 8 or older, they could be in a different room. So adult goes into the community room. We say, let us get coloring sheets for your 10-year-old. They can sit in the friend's corner and color while parent goes into the community room and do a program. And kids 0 to 7 are absolutely just like, we can't babysit, we can't accommodate, the adult can't go to the program. And this right here at the end of H where it says children will not be able to participate in the adult programming component, that means we're not going to provide like a watered down version of the adult content and the kids still can't be in the room with the parents. By age.
Oh, my God.
Hmm.
Oh, my God. You know, you delete one email and then the whole thread goes to the trash.
Oh, yes.
You know, because they're
Yep.
running out of storage and I see an email from Debbie says, I posted as is, and I'm like, okay, delete. And the whole thing
Yeah.
goes in the
Yep.
trash.
Yeah. So I can just highlight it as it sounds contradictory, we need to wordsmith it. If that's okay.
Okay.
It's very clear to me, but I wrote it. So. Yeah,
Oh, geez, where is that? Okay.
yeah, you can't come in, we'll find something for your kid to do that is age appropriate, they can't be in the room. They can.
I
be
would
adult.
specify that they would be in a different, in the
Okay.
children's room. So I would know that my kid is not going to be with me.
You can even say that we're not providing content. File. Complete and. Another. issue.
One of those things where kids are exposed to so much that's really intended for adults, you know, like the other day. Like my kids saw Jaws and I go, some kids at the Cub Scouts, it's just on Jaws. And like, yeah, it's only PG. I'm like, really? That's really funny. Because there's different rating back then, but like,
Mhm.
that's like,
Yeah, there was
that's
no
horror,
PG-13.
Yeah,
you know, so like, okay. But you know, certain things that kids are exposed to today may feel that they're appropriate for, oh, I watch that all the time. Well, not here. You
Right.
don't watch it at home or, you know.
well, and it's also about, you might have a bullet journaling program. And there's really not likely to be anything controversial that we are presenting that's adult only, right, or 18+ content.
Mhm.
But if the kid is sitting there in the people in the program are talking, you can't control their behavior or their conversation. And it's
Yeah.
the same with the teens in the teen room after school, and a 10-year-old or 8-year-old comes in to browse the teen games.
Yeah.
And now they're hearing things maybe that they should.
I watched two stand-up comedians on a Netflix special, and he's got children in the audience, and he goes, you know, I understand, you know, you're probably like 12 or 13, but you're going to hear some things that you're probably going to have questions for afterwards. You know, he just was like, I'm going to talk about things that aren't appropriate for you, and he can't be censored for that. He's there to put on the
Yeah.
show, you know what I mean? But yeah, you're right. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, no, that makes sense. Not always just about the content.
Yeah.
Okay.
John also mentioned section, is it supposed to be 9? Is there a section 11? It says section 11, but I'm only seeing.
It might be, it's not I. No, there is not 11, but it goes all the way to 11, event management.
Oh, how do I not have that? Okay. Section 11 seems like a mix of procedure and redundant verbiage. Part D does seem important, but maybe belongs elsewhere. That was his. That.
So I'm guessing that the redundant pieces are B and C, which is about registration, which has its own section. And D is Americans with Disabilities Act, and that we will ask people to request accommodations if needed, and we'll provide interpreters and captioning and hearing assistive listening devices.
Yeah, I mean,
It's a
you
task
don't even
force.
need to be so specific.
To say accommodations.
Mhm.
Does that belong under event management, or is that more of a overarching? I don't know, philosophy or principle that we want to have at the beginning, where
So,
we're saying that we do programming for all ages.
yeah. So what were we trying to address in event management?
Um,
Card manager.
yeah,
Um, yeah, I think it's nice to pull yeah, pull that section and put it somewhere more appropriate.
beginning. For now, I mean, I don't know that it's.
Sure, right. Well, you're gonna pare that statement down anyways. Be just more concise and or more general, whatever.
I mean, the registration stuff goes here.
With 7, with that, where did you move that?
So I just moved it to the very top. The AD
Okay,
went
I
to
mean,
the
it
very
would go
top.
under open access.
Oh,
It's open
Yeah.
access.
Open access is literally like if they're open to the public, the age limits. Targeted towards specific audiences, I would. Think it would probably fit under there somewhere. Yeah, you could almost put it in as B. Like it toward the top of the open access.
mhm.
Because it's saying it's all open to the public, but some might be limited with specific audiences in mind, children, teens, and the next one to say that we'll make accommodations.
Yes.
While you're on that page, I have questions. Participants under K, participants of any age who are disruptive to any library program will be, per our code of conduct, electing to terminate their participation. Take-home materials will be provided when possible.
Mhm.
I'm just wondering, why are we giving them library materials if they're disrupting and not following the rules of the library? Just a former teacher in me.
Okay,
I would be like, but I'm sorry, but we're gonna have to ask you to leave.
Yeah.
And you're therefore forfeiting.
Mm.
That's just me. I know we want to be polite and everything, but also, you know,
Yeah, some kid going, where's my take-home materials? I want them now.
yeah.
It says so in the policy. You have to do this.
You know, if you get a kid, like a teen kid that's just
Yeah.
mouthing off at one of the
Yeah.
staff members,
yeah.
I'm not gonna take the time to put together a to-go box for you. You know, it's just,
I think
I see that more with teens than other groups.
it might have been an acknowledgement that sometimes the disruption is beyond the control of the person, so it might not. So we might not want to have it appear so punitive,
Mhm.
like a participant who's on the spectrum who just can't contain themselves in the group and needs to leave. And they're being, disruptive in some way because of their disability. I think it was
Is
written,
that a code of conduct violation though?
if they're being disruptive, yeah, I mean,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, disruption is disruption.
Well, harmful to others or themselves, right? Could be bothering somebody else, pushing them, kicking them, whatever that may be, and like not letting it go, being disruptive, right? You are blocking the access of other patrons to enjoy the program.
Yeah.
Right.
So
So
that's good.
it is code of conduct.
Okay.
Yeah. We had an incident, I think this is related to, it was the Lego thing, that we had, a certain number of things available, people signed up, they got their first choices. 13-year-old kid came with a 7 and 8-year-old brother and sister to the program. Teen was not in the program. Ignored the kids you're supposed to be babysitting, which technically for our unattended child policy,
Yeah.
she was not allowed to. She wasn't old enough to have them unattended with her.
Mhm.
And we ended up sending them all home. But I think we said, take the stuff, you can't stay, but here's your go
Okay.
home. So it was, again, like they were disruptive, they were in violation, yeah, so multiple policies.
And
I
maybe
guess we
like
just didn't feel
think the
like-
materials may be provided at the discretion of libraries, yeah. Something like that.
The things the public has no idea we deal with, it's just crazy.
Yeah, I'm just thinking disruptive teens and like if you're being asked to leave because you're chasing each other around, you're throwing perler beads at each other. I'm not gonna put them in a
Right.
bag for you to take home.
Right.
But the teams are also checking the policy, but
Mhm.
you never know.
Okay, so maybe put-
And then on L, which just seemed very long and maybe a little redundant. Every attempt will be made to accommodate all who wish to attend a program, however, when safety costs or the success of a program requires it. Attendance may be limited, first come, first served basis, advanced leadership. The library reserves the right to deny attendance to anyone becoming disruptive. I don't know, is that the
let's see if
same
we-
as? I don't know.
So you can't deny attendance if they're becoming disruptive, right? Like they're disruptive or they're
screaming
not.
on the way in.
Yeah.
I mean, I
I
don't,
guess.
you'd be like, no.
Yeah, you're right. The one before that is anybody disruptive that they ask to leave, so.
Mhm.
So the library reserves the right to. Well, I guess I get, that's the same thing as the
Yeah,
other
we're
one.
just
Okay,
taking it.
that's what,
Okay.
that's what I had.
Putting in.
It's all over me now. Picking the tape off the table, the children put on there now. It's all over me. Do you have anything else?
Okay, so I think what I'd like to do is, we're right about at 8:30. So we can, end the discussion and, have this on the agenda for next week.
Mhm.
And next
Next time.
time, next month, next time.
You guys are wonderful, but not next week.
Yeah, next week.
All right.
Okay,
I'm about to stop my share.
all right, we just get to see your folder structure, which is very neat and organized. Yeah. Okay, so,
Do we hold
so
it?
which policies should we put on the agenda next time? So I guess what we're expecting back is a response from the union on the two of the policies that we addressed tonight. We are going to probably want to look at the Find Free library again one last time, and then
That's going to be
yep,
too.
that's going to union. Not quite yet, but that will go to union.
Mhm.
Uh,
I'll have a revision of the pandemic policy
yeah,
and a revision of
the display policy was union feedback if they get to it. So we'll look at the program policy again,
material selection.
and material selection policy.
So just,
Is anything
Old
coming
business.
off? I don't think so. Yeah, it'll all move to old business.
it's all getting moved to old business. I'm not gonna add anything else.
Very good.
Good call.
Don't add anything else.
No, that's not-
Yeah.
Okay. See if we have any public input. So,
There's no one on.
okay.
Maybe the
So no
kid
pub-
wears.
See no public input. Yeah. So let's set a date for our next meeting. Wednesdays still work well. We could meet July 5th. Yeah, I mean, I'm not on
I would be-
vacation. Yeah. When do you return? Are you gone the whole week?
Nope, I'm coming back the next day.
Yeah. So I'm available on that Thursday, I believe. I don't know what my class schedule looks like, but generally we have assignments due on Thursdays. I should be finished by then, but it could be in class. So we could do, sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say ukulele meets the next week.
Yep.
So,
The next week.
yeah, so the 12th, I'm not available.
Um,
The 19th I would be, and then we have a meeting 26th. Does that sound right?
is the
July.
library open Monday, 3rd? The people,
Only until 5 we close,
Yeah.
and I'll be away that day. I'm taking the 3rd and the 5th for the long weekend.
yeah,
Super long weekend.
so it can be on the 6th or the,
And 26 is the.
I can't meet on Thursday nights.
but you can meet on the 10th, Monday.
I think so. Am I? Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. It does mean a long day.
Yeah, I'm also free on Tuesday. Tuesdays actually are quite nice. Teddy has a troop meeting right across the way and I can grab him after his meeting.
Friends may or may not be meeting that night.
Yeah, so the 10th or 11th.
So the friends are meeting, I probably have to go to their meeting. Since chorus is over.
Mhm.
Yeah, so Tuesday would not work. Sometimes they take the summer off. No, I don't know.
So let's tentatively schedule it July 10th.
Okay.
Mhm. Very
Is
good.
there a reason the 19th wouldn't work to keep it all on Wednesdays?
When, it's just because it's it'll be a long time before we meet again, right?
I know, but I'm not expecting quick feedback.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, the 19th would be fine too.
Okay.
Yeah. That way we would be meeting the week before and the problem with that is if we have,
the board. Okay,
yeah, if
all
we
right,
have,
that's fine.
policies for the board to vote on, then they're
Yeah.
gonna wanna, we likely will.
Okay,
Um,
the 10th, I'll make the 10th one.
Yeah.
Thanks.
yeah, or we could do this 17th, and that gives them a week and a half to review policies.
What is foreseeable that they would be reviewing? Like if it's the display policy, that's super short. I mean, 7
No,
days.
It would
for-
probably be the art
Art
exhibit
display,
display
yeah.
policy, the food kitchen policy, because those have
Oh,
already,
okay.
those are already basically passed legal.
Yeah. Those are-
And potentially, plan free library if we agree, at that meeting. So I wouldn't do more than 2 or 3 policies though.
All right,
Just stick with the 10.
I don't remember, I don't think food display has, food and beverage has gone to legal. Art display has,
Okay,
I think. I'll have to go back and look.
We staying with the 10?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And you still saying via Zoom?
I prefer.
Okay.
sorry, what did you say? Zoom?
I'd rather Zoom, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, we can leave it as an option. I like to get out of the house and I avoid.
I mean, this is.
You're welcome to come.
This is technically Zoom.
It's technically a Zoom meeting.
We're zooming in person.
Yeah, yeah. If I can, the thing is, it needs to be recorded, right?
Mhm.
So either we do this or we go, to the municipal center. So I think we have to do Zoom. We can meet in person. Okay. Very good. Any further discussion on the meeting date? Right. Hearing none, I will hear a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
I second.
All in favor, Aaron, I, Beth,
Aye.
and Debbie.
Aye.
Great, and the motion carried.